G'day watchers, welcome to Perth Watch, your horology channel broadcasting from right here in Perth, Western Australia. Today I have quite a cool little piece actually, and it comes in this little package here. It is a piece from MAEN Watches. Now, MAEN is a company that was founded by two Dutchmen, interesting independent company with some nice pieces which they have produced over time. The name of the company is inspired by the Half Moon, the Dutch vessel which was involved in discovering the island of Manhattan, I believe. And the company is inspired by many of the Dutch-inspired landmarks in the city of New York, particularly Manhattan Island, as I understand it and as they describe in the company information. And they have come out with the goal of making timepieces with focus on quality craftsmanship and materials, along with attention to detail. So let's see if they actually meet their particular goal. Guys, without further ado, let's flip the camera around and take a closer look at this piece. Okay guys, so here we have the box on the table. Now this is actually a pretty grippy, I think, faux leather box. This isn't the actual presentation case the production watches will come in. This is actually just a case for the prototype that I have here. It's pretty grippy, so there's no watch box spinning today. Okay, so again, you know, this isn't how the proper watches will come in. This is just really the box they use for transporting the watch to get to me. So let's just show it to you guys in closer detail. So guys, over here we have the MAEN Hudson 38mm automatic. This is called the Mark III. They of course had a Mark II and I assume a Mark I as well, but I have no information on that. The Mark II I think was actually a larger watch. They actually have chosen to downsize this to a 38mm size, which I think a lot of fans would like actually, and hopefully a lot of you guys will find this of interest. So one thing I will note before we start is, hopefully I can show this to you, but down one side of the watch here, so over on this end, okay, you can see hopefully the writing there. It says ETA 2824 and it says 100 meters. That isn't the spec of the production watches. This may be the spec of this prototype, but we'll go into the spec of the production watches, which differ from what it says here. Okay, so first up, of course, we're going to talk about the movement. So details down the left of screen here. The movement in here is actually a Swiss-made STP 1-11. So that movement, as you guys may know, is based on the ETA 2824. It's kind of like one of the clone productions, but this is Swiss-made. All the specs down the left side. The hour reserve here is 44 hours, and that's attributed to a longer mainspring, which they chose to implement in the STP movements. The regulated accuracy of the STP is not really known, but MAEN have come out and said that they personally have regulated the watches to 0 to 15 seconds per day, and this watch is astoundingly well regulated, running about 2 to 3 seconds per day plus in the week or two that I've had this, so I'm very pleased with the accuracy they have achieved here. The quick set date in this case implemented on the 3 o'clock window, and you can see there it is a black writing on white disc date there. Okay, so that's the movement. Let's talk about the case. The case is, as you know, advertised, 38mm. In calipers, the bezel actually measures 38.3, so slightly more than 38mm, but you know, we'll give them a pass on that. 12.5mm to the top of the glass there is the thickness, so you know, pretty slim. 20mm lug width there, and a lug to lug distance between my thumbs there of 46mm. The overall weight of this watch, with a couple of links removed, is actually 128 grams, so it's actually pretty light, and that's kind of what you would expect with a watch of 38mm. I think some of them may be heavier, but you know, around this ballpark is fair enough for a watch of this size. Talking about finishing then, all right, bezel is polished. Hopefully this will come in with the lighting here that I have. Longitudinal brushing on the top surface of the lugs there, and then it transitions to a nicely polished bevel, as well as side there, right, is polished there. And then it transitions on to circular brushing at the bottom surface of the lugs, as well as most of the steel of the case back is actually circular brushing there. As you can see, it is a screw-down display case back, but interestingly, they have the these indentations here, for a standard case back remover, but it also has this, I don't know what you call it, I guess you can call that ridges for maybe an alternative tool, but I think that's mainly just a styling, and how Rolex you have these ridges for removal of the case back. This one, I think functionally, you would use those indentations to remove this particular case back. So screw down display case back and screw down sign crown there with the M there. This watch on spec for production is 200-meter water rating. That's what it states on the website, not like this prototype model, which is stating 100 meters at the back there. Okay, talking about the dial now. The dial is really quite something in this watch, I think. It's kind of this deep blue matte sandblasting finish is what they call it, a very fine sandblast. It's got printed details for the brand, automatic Hudson on the dial there. Hudson has a splash of color. It's got applied indices, around 11 of the positions, minus the date window position, of course, and it's got a rather nicely, done chapter ring in white on the flange there. That adds kind of a bit of flair on this watch and a bit of three-dimensionality to the dial. Really nicely done, I think. The hands are polished steel, and it's got a fairly unique shape. I haven't seen hands quite like this before, and I don't really know what you call this shape, but it's fairly unique. Lollipop seconds hand, and it's got C1 superluminova on all the usual spots around the dial, but not actually the bezel. The bezel doesn't have a lume pip, and of course a lume shot right here for you guys to see how it looks like in the dark. Okay, let's talk about the bezel surrounding the watch now. What we have here is a 120 click unidirectional dive style bezel, of course, so let's just hear how it sounds. So 10 clicks to 5. Another 10 clicks to 10 minutes there. So 120 clicks, very firm actually, no backplay at all, very firm. In fact, probably a little bit too firm, and with this bezel grip, slightly hard to turn, I think. Let's get it back to the 12 o'clock position there. Okay, that's about it. The insert, they've described it as stainless steel, so that's really the insert that you get there. So kind of black PVD to bring out those 60-minute markings around that dive bezel there. On top of the dial is a dome sapphire crystal, double dome, but you do get a little bit of distortion at extreme views, and there's a slight box edge there, which is fairly nicely done. I really quite like how they've done this crystal. It's not over the top, just very subtle details there that brings out the character, adds something to this watch, I think, that particular dome sapphire crystal. Moving on to the bracelet then. The bracelet is 5-piece per link, right? You can see at the bottom here, there's 5 pieces. So you got the center piece, which is flanked by 2 separate pieces, and then you got the side pieces there. So 5 pieces per link. It's got solid end links. You guys are already seen that, and it's got push pin adjustment in this particular watch. The bracelet is 20 millimeters at the watch, and it tapers to 16 millimeters at the narrowest portion. The clasp, I want to say it's pressed metal. I don't think this is actually quite milled. So I'm going to say it's pressed metal push button release with relatively solid deployant arms. One thing I'll note is that there are only 2 points for micro adjustments. So that's a slight little weakness there, only 2 points of adjustment there, nothing more than that. Okay, so that's the description. Let's just snap it on the wrist there for the wrist shot for you guys now. And there you have it. The MAEN Hudson 38mm automatic on my 17cm wrist. And remember, the lug-to-lug distance is only 46, so I think this will fit the majority of men, and very slim, 12.5 in terms of thickness, and that's how it looks like, right? Really quite a nice watch, I think. Okay, so guys, what have I enjoyed about the MAEN Hudson automatic? Look, I think this is a great little Swiss-made piece. It oozes quality and originality, I reckon, and the quality finishing is immediately noticeable. As you take it out of the box, you immediately see that it's something that is pretty well done. The sharpness, the brushing is very fine. Really, it's really quite well done. It's very difficult to convey this on camera, but in comparison with cheaper watches, this really does stand out, even though it's really not that expensive. Really nice design, really good choice of details. I like the dial, you know, that sandblasted blue, the hands, the narrow bezel, which is a bit of a vintage callback, and the just right crown size. They say it's 7mm, and I think it's like perfectly sized in terms of operation without the crown guards there to get in the way, and a pretty nicely done crystal. I really like that crystal. Not the most box of crystals, but you know, just right, I think. And overall, I say the small size, 38mm, is suitable for the majority of guys, and the design, you know, because it's not noisy, it lends well to broad versatility. You know, you can take this with a suit very easily, I think. And of course, with the water resistant, you can take it diving if you wish. You know, really, it's a very broadly applicable watch that you can almost take everywhere. What are the weaknesses? Really nothing much to say. I would say the bezel grip is not the easiest to grip, and because the bezel is really quite well fitted, it's difficult to turn. There isn't a bezel loom pip, so I guess they're not going for a full tool diver. If they were, you know, I wish they would give us drilled lugs. I'm not sure if it is possible with the construction of this watch, but drilled lugs I think would be a plus here. And the other thing I've mentioned already is the clasp has nearly no micro adjustment, really, the 2 points there, so maybe you might find it difficult to find that perfect fit to your wrist. You know, a slight minus there because of that clasp. The ceramic bezel would also be a plus at this price point, because there are so many other watches which are giving ceramic bezel in micro brands these days. If they gave that, I think they would step up their credentials in the competition. So guys, there we go. That's the description and thoughts of the Hudson Automatic. Let's just flip the camera around for the wrap up. So guys, there you have it, my review of the MAEN Hudson 38mm automatic. Really quite a good little piece, a lot of good features to like about it, and actually very little weaknesses, to be honest. So guys, let me know your thoughts about this particular piece. If you have any other experiences with MAEN watches, would love to hear your stories. If you own any other pieces that they have, certainly let me know your particular feelings about the watches you might own. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. I put out new content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys next time.